Welcome to Multifamily Method, a podcast which explores the state of the multifamily real estate market and some of the backgrounds, methodologies, and words of wisdom from some of today's most successful multifamily real estate entrepreneurs nationwide.
You know, I'm not afraid to take risk, like whatever. It's just another thing, either you can do it or you can't. If there's, like I said before, if somebody's doing something, you can do it. The only reason you don't know how to do it is because you haven't learned it yet. And they learned it just like you. And you've heard or seen the meme on Facebook, don't be afraid to suck at something new. You just have to have that mentality.
Welcome to the Multifamily Method, a podcast that explores the state of the multifamily real estate market and some of the backgrounds, methodologies, and words of wisdom from some of today's most successful multifamily real estate entrepreneurs nationwide. Hi, I'm Alex McDermott, host of the Multifamily Method.
And I'm Jad Risha, co-host of the Multifamily Method. Thanks for joining us.
Today we have Brandon Abbott with us. Welcome, Brandon. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me on the show today. Looking forward to talking about real estate. Excellent.
And I think you are our first guest that we've each done a deal with. So
that's always a plus, right?
We'll definitely need to talk about that as we get into it, kind of how Capstone has helped us, on our journey and our growth and getting started and getting into some new markets for us. So looking forward to it. So
today we'll discuss a little bit about your background, your experience, and your journey, where you guys have come from. So let's jump right into it. Can you just give us a background on yourself, your early life, and growing up?
Yeah, so I'm from upstate New York. If you're from New York, it's called Central New York because it's up kind of just underneath Lake Ontario, farm country, dairy farms, apple orchards, nothing really, to speak of. Where we lived, it was cornfields on three sides, and you could see one neighbor, 45 minutes to the nearest Walmart, way out in the sticks. Grew up there, went to a private Christian school, and moved to Greenville, South Carolina to go to school, to a school called Bob Jones. But it wasn't for me. I stuck around for about 2 months and bailed on the college thing, stuck around in Greenville. And that's really kind of where, I got into, I guess, real estate at the early stages, but at the construction level. So I started working on a framing crew up in the Cliffs of Glassy, up in the North Carolina mountains, framing houses, and just stuck around in the Greenville area. Eventually ended up starting my own construction business after many years. So I framed houses, then I wired houses, was an electrician for a few years, and then started my own business as a GC, building custom homes in the Greenville market, and then started a framing business as a part of that, and a grading business as well. I did that as my own business for about 5 years. That was right before the housing crash in 2008. Was doing really well, young, making good money, very successful, but over leveraged, had a lot of equipment, bulldozers, trucks, trailers, and all the rest. And then, Fannie and Freddie stopped lending in 2008, and really, the bottom fell out. So all of my contracts fell to pieces, therefore revenue fell to pieces. And, we actually ended up having to file bankruptcy back in that time. So lost everything, started from zero in 2008, moved into an apartment. And really, I think that was that moment when I realized that rentals were where it's at, because no matter what happens, people have to live somewhere. And in an economic downturn, when people can't get mortgages and they can't buy houses and they can't have that American dream, if you will, they have to live somewhere. So they're going to rent. And, they may not always rent the nicest place, but that's where they're going to go. And so I recognized at that point in my life that, I'm going to recoup from this. I'm going to get back, and I want to get into rentals. And so that was kind of that epiphany moment, I guess you'd say, when I recognized that. So at that point in my life, I transitioned obviously out of construction, started working. I had 3 kids at that time. One had just been born, right when everything was going down. We were, at the bottom, just no money, no nothing. And I still had to support my family. So I got a third shift job at a gas station, still doing some side contract work on the construction side, trying to make ends meet. And then got a job at UPS working the morning shift and moved up to management there. And just really, did whatever it took to, support your family. Cause that's I'm a huge believer in work ethic, that no matter what, if you are willing to work hard, you'll always have something to lean on. And then, with UPS, they offered, if you're in management, they would pay for your schooling 4 years. And they required that to move up in management, to be like full-time, like executive management. So I was like, hey, I'll take advantage of that. I'll go ahead and, take their money, get an education, but I was going to get an education actually in nursing. Right. So I was actually strategically looking at fields, the economic fields that were not directly affected by downturns, such as single family construction or something like that. So I was looking at medical, and then I was working at UPS, and I was like, so that way I'll have it. I can either move up in UPS or I can go in the nursing field. And at the same time, I got my insurance adjusting license. So I kind of was looking at 3 different avenues that I could go. The door opened up to go into insurance adjusting before I was even able to proceed with the education piece with UPS, and transition away from that and went into full-time insurance adjusting. So that's, looking at damaged cars, houses, whatever. When hurricanes come to town, I'm climbing up on roofs and driving around, the Southeast. I think I was about 5,000 miles a month as I was driving, back then, just, working hard, and it was great. It was great for us, at that point in time, still living in Greenville, kind of got things stabilized on that front. Fast forward about 8 years, somewhere around there, maybe a little less than that. I did insurance for about 8 years. And Dan Hanford, who's one of the managing partners at PassiveInvesting.com, along with myself and Danny Randazzo, Dan Hanford invited my wife and I and his wife and him and another couple from our church. We've gone to church together, and we knew each other lightly. But he said, hey, you want to go to New York City for the day? And, we'll just go and eat dinner and take, he chartered a jet, and we flew into Teterboro and took a helicopter, landed on the side of the Hudson, and, did the whole New York thing. And he was talking at that point in time about how he was investing in multifamily, because he is in the medical profession, and he was looking for ways to offset his income, taxes and whatnot. So he was looking to the multifamily space, and he was explaining, depreciation and cash flow and syndication and multifamily, and I was just like, all the light bulbs were going off in my head, and I had not ever understood or realized that market was out there, but just totally understood it at the first moment.
And how long ago was this?
That was in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So not too long ago. And so he was just investing passively at that point in time, was not operating, but was wanting to get into that and be, because we all have the same mindset. Dan and myself is like, if somebody else can do it, we can do it and probably do it better. And so, right. Let's look at starting something up. And at that time, Danny had not joined us. And so I got back from that trip and just downloaded info. I mean, I bought like 8 books and, subscribed to all these podcasts. And as I'm driving around looking at claims, I got a lot of windshield time. I don't listen to the radio while I'm in the car because I think it's mind mush. And so if I want something to engage my mind, I listen to podcasts or books or whatnot. So I did all that. And then went back to Dan. It was only a couple months later, said, okay, I understand it. I get it. Let's do something. And he's like, well, we'll just be partners because, there's no revenue. We haven't started anything yet. So let's do it. And then and then Danny came on a couple months after that. And then we started, just reaching out to brokers and the rest is history. And we can get into a little more details as we go on, but just super excited at what multifamily has provided for my family, for our investors. It's just a great place. It's really just been a blessing to us. And, we try to sell it to as many people as possible, but, you have those people that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And you can explain everything the way Dan explained it to me. And you can see their eyes glass over. And as soon as I see that response, I just move on. So, hey, what are you doing? And I just move on, because you either get it or you don't get it.
Right.
Those that get it are successful.
No, absolutely.
How did you guys bring Danny into the fold? Was he part of the church group too, or was just a different relationship?
No, so Dan and Danny both had the same mentors in the multifamily space. So they were in an education program together, and that's where they knew each other. And so one of the early deals that we were looking at was in Charleston, which is where Danny's based. And so Dan and I had the conversations like, well, I mean, he knows the market. We can ask him what he thinks. And then, hey, what do you think about just bringing him on? Because we each have our own areas of expertise, mine being construction and estimating and the hard asset, whereas Dan is, marketing and business. And then Danny's is financials. Like he worked for Deloitte and was a financial analyst. So he's, spreadsheets and all that. So we each provided the piece that was missing from each other. And so we had a conversation. We met down in Charleston. We toured that property down there. We didn't end up purchasing it. But that was the beginning of that. And then, like I said, the rest is history.
You mentioned work ethic, and that's actually where we were wanting to go next. So it's the perfect segue. So where do you think you got that work ethic that you so strongly believe in? Where'd you get that from?
That's a tough question, because you have nature and nurture, the type, are
Right.
you born with it? Are you raised with it? I think it's a little bit of both. From my perspective, I'm a Christian, so I believe that God gives me everything that I have. And so I think, he endowed me with that mindset, and just, I'm not afraid to take risk, like whatever. It's just another thing, either you can do it or you can't. If there's, like I said before, if somebody's doing something, you can do it. The only reason you don't know how to do it is because you haven't learned it yet. And they learned it just like you. And you've heard or seen the meme on Facebook, don't be afraid to suck at something new. You just have to have that mentality. And my parents are not that way at all. They're very stable and, don't take risks at all. And I think it was a little bit of a counter reaction to the way they were. I love my parents. They're great. A lot of the financial knowledge as far as compound interest and investments and stuff, my dad actually talked about a lot of that, but he never, really took a lot of action on that early on. So I think I got a little bit of that from that. And my dad's a hard worker. He worked the same job out of high school all the way until he retired. And put all four of us kids into private school, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and, paid for, us, all of my siblings, except for one, went to the same school. Obviously I didn't stick around, but he paid for that as well. And so just really, hard worker and sacrifice for his kids. So I think I got a lot of that from him as well.
So I think next you kind of touched on this, said really owe Dan Hanford for getting you interested in real estate in the multifamily side of things. But I guess like early on, what got you into the construction side? Because that's provided a ton of knowledge for you now that you probably never anticipated getting into. And then also on the insurance side, that gave you even more knowledge into the industry. I think you have a background that a lot of people in our realm don't have, because you've been there swinging a hammer, then you've been on the insurance side adjusting. And I've noticed that when we're working on deals, and one of the first deals that we ever did, you're out there with an iPad, doing roofs measurements and replacement costs and all of this. And I'd never seen that before at that time. So
yeah.
I would say that like the nails and the 2x4s is like the area where people are least knowledgeable in our business, right?
Yeah. And that's, it's, believe it or not, that's also the case on the residential builder side. You have builders that are builders on the business side, but they don't understand how it's how the sausage is made, in other words.
Right.
So they lack that insight. So when I'm getting bids from people and they're telling me a price, I know how long it's going to take and I know what's involved. And so you're not going to pull the wool over my eyes, like when you give me a price. It's like, there's no way it's going to cost you that much to do that. I've done it myself. I know how to do it. I can do it myself, so no, that's not going to work. It definitely has provided, a lot of knowledge on that front, just to kind of put, my job at Passive Investing is acquisitions and putting together the capital plan. And so understanding what it's going to take and what really needs to be done on the property has been, very valuable. It also gives you, like you said, there's not a lot of people in the space that have that knowledge. So it's so second nature to me that I forget that people don't know it. And so I'm just saying things because it's just, I know that, but, and then people are like, how did you learn all this information? And it's like, it's just from doing it. And, and I've utilized that knowledge, in the multifamily space to get, really millions of dollars of free stuff on our properties from insurance claims and different things, just because I know how to do it. And how to estimate it and, how to put that together. I negotiate, insurance claims all the time on our deals. And I've replaced the roofs, I think on 5 properties now for free, all through insurance claims. Some before we've taken over the property and it's on the seller's insurance policy, and some after we take over. And that's huge,
Yeah.
I think let's skip ahead a little bit. You touched on this on you and Dan starting PassiveInvesting.com, bringing in Danny. Let's get into some more detail on what the early process of that looked like and what your game plan was there, how it's transitioned now, and.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, to anybody listening, in this space, you have to be very, very pliable, and understand that the market is not stagnant and it's constantly changing, and you have to adapt your business plan as things are coming at you. Back then, COVID, who would ever thought, we'd be talking about this stuff now. So early on, we were, their mentor was value add, 80s deals, value add. And that made sense, right? You come in, you purchase an asset that has some deferred maintenance, or they haven't upgraded it, so it's not as desirable to the residents. So we'll come in and add capital, increase rents, right? And then therefore increase NOI and value. And that was what our target was. And, early on with the 3 partners, we all looked at what we would provide and what our duties were, delegation of labor, and just said, what are we good at? And this is your lane, this is your lane, this is your lane. Let's not cross over lanes, but every decision we're going to make is going to be all 3 of us together. And that works very, very well for us. We also had a meeting we went away for the weekend, invited the wives, because you're going to be in business together for years to come, and everybody needs to be able to get along and have a good chemistry. So we want to make sure even the wives got along really well. And so we did that early on. And then we looked at what each person was providing as far as the compensation standpoint, loan guarantor, liquidity and different things like that, and how that was going to break down and what percentage of the GP each person was going to get based on that. And then we just went to work. I mean, when we first started, we didn't even have a deal yet. Alex, we met with you up in Charlotte, and that was before Danny actually came on. We got a virtual assistant, on Upwork, and kind of put together like all the multifamily deals that fit in our criteria in the Charlotte market. And we drove every single one of those things and secret shopped it, and went all, we're going to all these meetups, and then I put together meetings with all the brokers in Charlotte, and we went all around, and, we met with you guys in your office in Charlotte. And, when we first started, at that point in time, I quit my insurance adjusting job before we even had our first deal. So no income projected, no deals on the horizon, but, we're definitely, all 3 of us are very 100% committed to what we're going to do. This is what we're doing. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. We're not going to do it part-time. We're going to do it full-time, and just dove in, head first, feet first, whatever you want to say, and went right at it. I remember that particular meeting that we had with you, Alex. You had just come out with a deal, and we can get into this in a little bit too. And you handed us the OM, the printed OM. You said, "Well, we just came out with this deal. You might be interested in it." And that ended up being our first deal that we ever purchased. So, that was very exciting.
That's cool. So when you were going out meeting with brokers, had you already raised the capital? And then because I know how we are when somebody shows up and doesn't own anything and is like, we want to buy a deal. What was the brokerage community's initial response and reaction to you guys? Alex is nicer than most brokers. So what was the balance of what was the consensus when you went out to try and meet with brokers?
That's the hardest thing is getting started. Because you don't have experience. I think some of the benefit was that Dan was already passively invested in deals and was kind of on the GP on a couple of deals. He wasn't the head sponsor, so we had some experience there. And the other thing that helped us is we provided all the at-risk capital and we were our own loan guarantor. So that's helped us a lot in that, because that's always the question that's asked, where's your capital coming from? Right. And then the syndication model is, it's hard for some brokers to wrap their head around, raising contract to close. And that's just, it's a lot of sales on yourself, selling yourself and your ability. And you just have to negotiate from a position of authority. And it's kind of like, we are going to do it. It's, we think we can do it or whatever. I think having Dan, having already raised for a couple of deals, in the past helped, say, well, we have a little bit of a track record. We just don't manage anything ourselves. So that's definitely the hardest thing to get over. But, as people are skeptical, you have different brokerage firms that have different nuances to them. Some are very formal and, kind of snooty and kind of, they're like, oh, okay, they only want to give you the time of day. But now we have everybody's full attention. So we're thankful for brokers like Alex that, are willing to give us a shot, and get started, because all of your fuel is burned on takeoff. And once you get up to cruising level, you're pretty much clicking away. But definitely takes, confidence. We tell people that want to get in the space now, you need to invest passively in deals before you just jump into. There's no way you can just come out there out of the blue and say, oh, I want to buy multifamily. Great. So do thousands of other people, and they're better connected and have more capital. So
yeah, that's definitely the tough part now for us, is weeding out through who's real and who's not. And it's always a gamble if you've never dealt with somebody before. It doesn't matter if they're brand new to the space or they've been doing it for 20 years. It can be difficult no matter what. But I will say that first deal you guys came in, executed perfectly. It was a very smooth transaction. So that gave us confidence to go on to the next ones and the next ones. So
Alex, how nervous were you on going to the owner and saying, this is our horse on that deal?
A little bit, but no worse. So that deal actually got awarded. Then the guy flaked on it. And so they stepped up. Passive came in, stepped up. And I think that was a deal that you guys reviewed the PSA and said, hey, we're good, and had very minimal changes to it. And so the seller, which at the time was Monument, and they said, all right, let's give them a shot.
Yep. And that's a strategy that we've been consistent on, and it's kind of it is intentional, is to have very smooth transactions with very little to no retrade. You have to underwrite reserves into these deals for unexpected things that you're going to find when you get on the property. And because if you're really, really tight on your underwriting and then, rates change or you find some deferred maintenance that you didn't know about and you're like, wanting to retrade, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth. And so, that was our big thing, is like, let's get it closed. is it, would we like to ask for, a credit on this? Yeah, we'd love to, but we want to get this deal closed. We got to get into the space. So we're going to, eat a little bit of this in the first place and just be very professional, very quick, and just be very easy. We want every broker that transacts with us to come away from it saying that was the easiest transaction we've ever done, and we want to sell to these people again. And the story too, about, being the deal was awarded. And I was actually on a tour with another broker on another property in another submarket. And we were talking about, this particular deal, that particular deal. And, have you heard anything about it? And that particular broker knew the person who had been awarded to, and said, I think that deal's faltering, because they're having trouble with raising the money. And then, so I went back to Dan and was like, hey, look, we need to reach back out to Alex on this. And then, we had the call with Alex and said, hey, how's everything going with the deal? And he's like, funny you should mention that. What do you guys think about, picking it up? And so we were very thankful for the opportunity. We've now gone full cycle on that deal. That deal sold.
Yep.
And that was our first deal. And I'll give you a really cool background story to that deal. And I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, Alex, or not. I may have. So during that period of time where, we started from scratch and had nothing, I actually started a food concession business, doing a hot dog cart, like a street vendor cart. And I worked at sporting events and downtown Greenville on Main Street, selling hot dogs every day. That's what I did. And I'd go to work at UPS in the mornings and then leave there, go get my cart set up, go set up downtown, sell hot dogs. But the very first place I ever set up was at a car wash in Greenville, because I used to get my cars washed there, and it's kind of like a full service one. So people are in the waiting room waiting for the cars to get done. And I went to this company and said, hey, do you mind if I set up my hot dog cart outside of your car wash? So when people are waiting for the cars to get done, I can sell to them and to the workers and everything else. So that was the very first place I set up. And that was right across the street from this deal that we're talking about. And so, come full circle, every time I would go on that deal, I'd look across the street and say, I was selling hot dogs in front of that car wash, just a few years ago. And now I own this asset, now we've sold that asset. And it's just, it's kind of a cool little story that I like to share with people sometimes.
It's a good growth story, right? And setting goals and reaching goals.
Yeah, never give up. That's for sure.
It's like Robert Kraft used to sit in the stands watching the Patriots games, and now he owns the team.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe that'll be our next venture. Buying a sports team.
Yeah. It's worked out well for Michael Jordan.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of summarize the struggles early on were getting your first deal, overcoming some of those hurdles associated, with getting your first deal. Obviously, the world's changed a lot now. How has your strategy shifted? Because that was a real value add deal. Like that's what Dan and Danny's coaches preaching was do these value add deals. You guys have shifted away from the heavy lift value add deals. What are you looking at now? And what are the struggles associated with your strategy now?
Yeah. So going back to the value add strategy, that was a reposition, right? So we're going to take a C class, put a lot of capital into it. I think our interior terms were like 12,000, plus we put, I think, almost $1 million into the exterior. There's a lot of hair on that there's a pond and all kind of stuff, and, getting into DHEC and all the rest of it there. And so, in your mind, it all sounds great. We're going to buy it. We're going to turn it over into a B class. And then, it's going to be this. Well, the problem with that is, all neighborhoods have a stigma, so it's unless you're going to de-lease the property and then release it with all the B class tenants or residents, then it's very hard to do that, because you still have your C class residents and your B class don't really want to live in that neighborhood because it's transitioning. So we realized that was as a big risk, right? So you're putting all this capital in for, an increase in NOI or a rent increase. And, as we get into multifamily, we start, calculating cap rates and what things are selling for. And we realized pretty early on, actually after that deal, and that we could purchase larger deals with very little work or no work for the same cap rate and achieve just as much rental premium. Like maybe it was pre-stabilized or, so they're in lease up. So they're looking at velocity of rents and not really getting up to market. So there's a high loss to lease number there. And so we're like, hey, that's, that loss to lease number and concession burn off is equal to what we were trying to achieve by spending $12,000 a unit trying to reposition a Class C asset. Why don't we just buy these assets? And I don't have to work so hard, right? Because it takes just as much work to buy a $8 million deal as it does to buy an $80 million deal. It's the same. Quite frankly, it's a little bit easier because your debt gets a little bit better and, there's
more sophistication. Yeah.
You have more units, your tenant. And that was the other thing too. And this was pre-COVID that we made this decision. We were looking at income rates within our resident demographics and saying, okay, in a downturn, who's going to be most affected? You have people that have to rent. That's your workforce housing, your C class. And then you have people that choose to rent because maybe they're a consultant or maybe they travel a lot or maybe they just don't want the headache of owning a home or whatever the case may be. But, they can afford the rent. They make, making $80,000, $90,000 and, paying $1,200 in rent. It's not a big deal for them. Right. So we don't really have an issue. And so we looked at the risk factors on our demographic studies and decided that was better for us to do. And we made that shift right at the beginning of, when did COVID hit? Was that 2020?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of the year, we said, all right, we're going to start looking at A-class assets. And our very first one we put under contract March 15th, 2020. And that was our very first one to use that strategy. And that property had a 50% break-even occupancy on it at the rate we purchased it at. So we could go down to 50% vacancy and still pay all of our bills. And our, average income, I think was like 90,000 on there. And then we started looking, and then COVID hit, right? So we started looking at, okay, what sectors of the economy are residents in? Are they in, retail? Are they in hospitality? Or are they in executive level positions? Kind of where is everybody at? And that's something we look at continuously now. And that proved to be a very valuable strategy for us moving post-COVID. And, I don't think we'll ever look back. We still do value add, but if we do value add, it's $5,000, $6,000 per unit. We do like to offer a little bit of diversity to our investors. So, because we have a big pool of investors, so they don't always not everybody likes to see all the brand new assets coming in. So we like to stagger it with a value add, like a, 2000 deal, with some light value add and then a pre-state deal. And then, maybe another 2010 vintage deal with like $3,000 of CapEx, maybe just flooring and paint, and light fixtures or something like that. Very easy to do. And that's working very well for us. And I think we'll continue that strategy out.
And that's typically like a little bit newer construction anyways, right? Like 90s and newer.
Right. And you just have less risk. Like your due diligence is so much less of a question when you're buying a 2020 asset versus a 1976 asset. You're going to have aluminum wiring and you're going to have, polybutylene pipes and, is there lead-based paint? And I don't have to worry about that with the rest. Right. They just had a phase one done. They just had their title and survey done. All their plats are good. They just built it. There's warranties on stuff because it's just was built. So if there's an issue with structural, we can go back to the original contractor. So it just is easy. And I think people get scared by the number and they have this, finite mindset of what they can achieve. Just like we want to get started. So we want to buy $5 million assets. Well, why don't you buy a $50 million asset? Oh, no, we can't do that. I think that's baloney. I think they limit themselves just by their mindset. And once you break out of that, 100 million, whatever you want to do, you can just keep going. Obviously you have to have the capital to do it and the net worth and liquidity to accomplish that. But there are people out there that can provide that for you.
Right.
And I definitely think, don't limit yourself based on the deal size.
I completely agree with you. I think good deals come in all sizes, unless it's like $3 million. Then it just becomes hard to run this. But diving back in,
pool is so much better on the newer assets too. So I mean, your smaller assets, your buyers are not as sophisticated.
Right.
You're going to run into more issues. They're going to be more high maintenance when you're in the DD. I mean, all this other crap that you're not going to run into when you're selling to an institutional group. It's a process for them. You're just not going to. It's very smooth. It's just so much easier.
Oh, I 100% agree. And us as brokers, we look at it as, I've had the experience where a $3 million deal and a $100 million deal are going at the exact same time, and 10 times out of 10. The $100 million deal takes significantly less of my time, attention, everything, and closes quicker, right?
Yep.
You might have to have 3 conversations during due diligence on a big deal. On a small deal, you might have to have 3 a day.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of coaching, a lot of hand holding.
A lot of hand holding. Yeah.
Well, and that's something else that we looked at is our exit strategy. You always want to know who your buyer is going to be. There's tons of REITs and family offices and 1031 groups that'll buy large assets from us.
Yep.
But they don't want to touch the smaller stuff. And so if, those people are going to be there regardless. And so, as an exit strategy, that was something that we looked at too, when looking at nicer assets, just need to have somebody to sell to.
For sure.
So when you guys started shifting, sorry, Alex, when you guys started shifting into looking at Class A and larger and more institutional grade assets, we're talking 18 months ago, basically now. Obviously, the market has changed significantly in the last 4 months, let alone 18 months. So what is Passive doing or going to do to shift along with the market and be competitive or differentiate going forward?
Well, I mentioned earlier being pliable. So, if we have a deal that it was a 5-year hold, but then, our basis, we're achieving our exit price now, 1 year in, I'll sell that deal. So, and then that allows me to buy some bigger deals because I have 1031 money coming out of that deal, going into another deal. That is a strategy, just doing, being open to circumventing the business plan or achieving the business plan early, I think would be a better way to put it. Also diversifying across different platforms. So we love multifamily. That's definitely where we like to be, but real estate as a whole is a great, anytime you're buying hard assets, especially now with, inflation where it is, if I buy a property right now and inflation is skyrocketing, well, my money's just going up with inflation. So is rent. And so my NOI is going up and my sale price is going up. So there's really no issue there. But we also, transitioned into hard money lending. So we have a whole arm that lends to fix and flippers. It's called Rehab Wallet. So, we do it mostly in the Southeast. And we have a fund for that, and we have investors that invest in that, and it's liquid, right? So when we had a little bit of a lag in pipeline and we couldn't get some deals out, we were trying to find something to keep our investors, keep active with them, keep them engaged. And that was one way to do it. So they could put their money into that fund, they could make a good return, and they had a 90-day liquidity option. So if a deal came out, they could pull that money out of that deal and put it into a multifamily deal. And we also allow them the ability to take their distributions from their multifamily real estate and compound it into that fund. Now that fund does not provide some of the tax advantages, from the cost segregation and stuff that the other one. So you're going to pay capital gains on that, but you can still compound it. So if you're making, 7% cash on cash over on the multifamily side, and you're dumping it into this fund that's making 6%, and you just let that, compound, and then you can pull it out when you want. It's just a way to offer some variations to our investors to keep them engaged. So we're constantly looking at new avenues. Another thing that we did was we started our own insurance captive. So selling renters insurance to the tenants as well. Right. So we do that on all of our assets, and it's like, well, why not? Right. It's revenue being generated that we could tap into, and constantly just looking for new ways to generate income and you can never just like we mentioned, we were talking a little bit before we started the podcast about getting fat and happy. It's easy to do. Things are clicking away. We've grown the team significantly. When we first started, just Dan, Danny, and I was out there swinging a hammer and renovating units, on that first deal.
Right.
Started a whole construction company from the ground up within the first year, exited that. Now that's an independent company that I do not have any part in, but they are working for third parties, and it's a business that covers the whole Southeast and Texas now. You get the employees now, and so we don't have to be quite as involved, but we still have to always be looking at the vision, right, or growing the vision, right. Always being on that side.
I mean, you guys continue to be innovative throughout the space, whether it is the funds keeping your investors engaged. Let's get a little more granular. How do you guys look at a deal, and when you see certain things that are being missed on the income side, what are you doing to be innovative to increase value on deals on the deal side now?
Sure. Well, it's, we're IRR and cash on cash driven. So we have a number, we have a range that we have to hit on IRR and a range we have to hit on cash. So one of the two are going to be light, and you have to look for levers to pull within your underwriting that can achieve the cash on cash that your investors are expecting. So other income is a huge part of that. So most people are just looking at the GPR and the rents, but other income is a big piece of that has really allowed us to get more deals. And you have to be innovative in that space. So what are your residents paying for that you could receive the income from? Are they getting internet or cable or whatnot? So one thing, just for instance, that we have done is we use a couple different companies, but we bring in fiber optics into the property, and we provide Wi-Fi to the residents at a charge that is equal to or slightly less than the market. So whatever their internet provider is, we provide that. And they also get common space Wi-Fi across the property, and we get the revenue for that. That can be huge because you can generate maybe $50 extra per month per unit, based, including your vacancy numbers. But $50 per unit, when you're talking a deal where you only can get $100 rent premium, now you tack on another $50 to that can be whether you get the deal or not.
Right.
And, we also do different things. We offer 2 class shares to our investors. So we have one that's a class A, which they're basically a debt. They're right on top of the actual debt in the property, in the capital stack. And so they get a 9% on average, or, it varies per deal. So I can't really say a specific number. But on average, it's about 9%, but they don't have any equity upside.
Right.
Well, what that does is as I increase those investors, it increases my IRR because, the amount of money left when we sell the deal is now higher because I'm paying out less of the upside when we sold the property to that group of investors. So if I'm light on cash, right, if I'm light on IRR, I can increase the class A shares, and that's going to give me a higher IRR. But that also adversely affects your cash on cash, right? It's because you're paying a 9% versus paying a 7%. So it's a balancing act, and always trying to look at things from that perspective, and looking at like tech packages. Private yards are a big thing, that we've started implementing. Yep. We try to be pretty conservative on that, but like the fenced in backyards off of a patio, can you $100, premium for that, and it costs you, $1,000 to $1,500. I mean, that's a ridiculous ROI. So looking at things like that, and don't always, what are we missing on this deal? That's always what we look at. When we're consistently missing deals, we have to say, okay, we need to look at what our process is and look at what our underwriting values are. Do we need to reassess our return rates? Is the market gone, to a point where we need our investors to expect less because it's just what people are returning? So that's one lever. Or are there ways that we can get innovative and generate more income, by whatever means, whether it's insurance captive or, internet or whatever the case may be. You have to be very creative in this space, to get deals to work, because it's super competitive in this market right now.
Oh, right now it's crazy. And I think part of that is that, rental rates are increasing so rapidly that even if it is a 3.5 cap or it's a 3.25 cap right now, by the time you're closing, like your upper threes, low fours, and then in 6 months, 12 months, you're mid four. It's just rapid growth right now, especially where you guys are buying, where a lot of our offices are. You're just seeing that Southeast Sun Belt growth at a pace that we've never seen before. And groups are dumping money into multifamily after COVID and the Southeast to chase these deals and chase the yield.
Yep. Oh, it's pretty crazy. And that's another thing that we had to get creative on. You can look at your acquisitions process and say, okay, marketed deal. When's your call for offers? When's the BOV and all that? But then we see deals running 30,000 per door over guidance. And I'm like, what the heck is happening right now? And we're, when we started out, on a couple of these deals, we're like, I got 15,000 a door to run. We're good. Let's go ahead and put in an offer. And then it blows right by us. And we're like, what happened? So then then it's like, okay, we got to get off market deals or preempt deals. So, go in early, go in high. So we changed our strategy just recently. Okay, whatever guidance is, that's guidance. And then we have our strike price. Let's offer midway between guidance and our strike. So it's over guidance, halfway to our strike. So we got some room to move because everybody's going to counter you. And we started offering higher than guidance. Before it was like, what's the minimum I can offer to get on the best and final call or get a buyer interview call? That doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Because, and another reason that doesn't work is because, and this is something you understand as you become a seller, when you get a group of offers in, the lowest one you're not paying attention to as much as you are the highest one. So the highest one is the one that has got your attention. So if you're always just trying to get in the buyer interview call or just make the best and final cutoff, you did that, but you didn't catch their attention. So if we can jump ahead of everybody, the last deal we got in Florida, we put in a preemptive offer a week after it came out. They hadn't even put the OM out, I don't think. We went down and toured it and underwrote it, had an offer in well over guidance, and tried to get them to preempt. They did not take the preemptive offer, but we got their attention, and that offer held all the way through best and final, all the way until the last offer. And we had to increase just a little bit per door and ended up winning the deal. And we had their attention the whole time. So.
No, that makes sense. Have you found it difficult? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but have you found it difficult as you've gotten into this more institutional level and groups are, you're going up against Blackstones and all these other huge, behemoths, right? To come in as a syndicator and win deals and have sellers be comfortable with that model?
Yeah, that is definitely, I'd say, our biggest struggle is, seller confidence. And that some of that comes from broker relations, and you guys having confidence in us and you selling us to the seller. That's a huge part of it.
Right.
The other thing is, what kind of wording you're using when you're describing syndication. So we have intentionally stopped using the word syndication. And we word it as in we have a pool of investors, 60% of which are reinvest, and it's almost like pre-committed, and we just do a capital call when we have deals come out, because that is essentially what we're doing. We have, 1,500 investors that have actively invested in deals, 60% of them are reinvestors. So, and then we point to our track record. We've never dropped a deal. We certainly have, never had an issue with raising equity. You can talk to this person. And so we go on track record. The only time it really becomes an issue is if people are buying all cash, because we just don't have that capacity yet. We plan to get a credit facility in place and start purchasing all cash and placing debt on afterwards. But one way that we can counteract that is with non-refundable money day one, because some of the institutional level people cannot do that. They by their laws, they can't put hard money down. And so that's a way to say, well, I mean, if you're going to put, we've put $1 million hard day one on deals. Now I'm not going to do that on a value add deal. I can guarantee that. That's
Right,
going to be on
right.
a construction deal. And we've done that. And, those are those, moments where it's like separates the men from the boys. And
Right.
that's a conversation that the three of us have as partners. And we say, all right, do we want to get this or not? Do you feel confident we can raise this money? Yep. Do you feel confident in the underwriting? Yep. You feel confident in the business plan? Yep. All right, let's do it. And, just go from there. So you have to be able to put yourself out there and take the risk in order to get the deals. But, it's amazing when we get on these calls with some of these big behemoths like you're talking about, and we talk about our process and how we raise money from contract to close. And they're on our website while we're on the call. Now how do you, and some of them like sell it, so how can I invest with you? And they want to invest some of the sellers on the buyer calls.
So with 4, it was like, well, who are these? We sent the offer over. It's like, who are these guys? Like, where is their money coming from? What is their business model? Like, we need to get on a call with them. And to your guys' credit, like you said, messaging, you've got your message down now.
Yeah.
And so when we got on the call with them, it was like, okay, we're good. We're comfortable. This is a good offer. Hard money obviously helps. But your message is out there now. And I think it also helps where syndication, historically had been only in the kind of private client B and C space. And now we are starting to see a lot more syndication entering the A space. So, sellers and owners are getting a little bit more comfortable with the model as a buyer profile.
Well, yeah, that's something that another intentional business move that we made was switching into the institutional level because it separated us from the other syndicators.
Yeah.
And we are it's got to be less than a handful of syndicators that buy at the level that we do in the 60 million plus range, and in the A class, they're not there. And so it got rid of that competition, but it brought in the whole next set of competition. But it's we talked about velocity and getting started. Once we purchase an asset from, 4 properties or, like a CBR Global or a Blackstone, and they understand us, we're looking for repeat sales.
Right.
Next time we get on a call with them, they are totally comfortable with us. And that helps. And you can just keep building momentum based on, confidence in your group. So reputation is paramount in this industry. It's a very small industry, and it's a huge industry, but it's very, we know everybody, right? Everybody knows everybody. You know all the players. So if somebody falls on a deal or drops a deal, everybody's going to know about it. And you got to be very candid. You got to have conversations early and often. So, we had the deal that we were under contract for when COVID hit. I mean, this is new. What do you do in that situation? Rates went up a point, a whole percentage point over the weekend, and I didn't underwrite that kind of sensitivity in that interest rate, and nobody expected you to. And we didn't have any force majeure on the contract, and because it just really wasn't kind of a thing,
Right.
And so we very quickly, when interest rates went up and, it's going to affect the deal, we just got on a call with the seller and said, hey, look, nobody saw this coming. This is not our fault, right? But it is what it is. We want to buy this deal, but we can't buy it at what we offered at. So, here's what we would like to buy it at. We had a hard earnest money that had no reason to negotiate with us. But, I think they appreciated, we didn't wait. It was in the middle of due diligence. We just got on the phone, like literally that day that we had that conversation. And we didn't get it exactly where we wanted it to be, but they were that we did renegotiate the price, and and we have a great relationship with that group moving forward. And we've done a couple transactions with them, and the brokers were appreciative. So if we run into an issue, we're going to bring it up. We're not going to wait until day before DD. Oh, by the way,
right.
I want a credit for this or something like that. That just pisses everybody off.
And anything that was under a contract on March 15th of last year, I would say maybe 5% of those deals actually closed.
Even if there was
that contract,
hard money. Yeah. I agree.
We sell that to people with the syndication model, because we point back to COVID, the initial shutdown, how many deals dropped because they had one equity partner
Right.
Those providing all the equity, and they got cold feet and dropped. We had people that dropped, but we have a pool of investors, so it didn't affect us. All the institutional money just dried up, gone. So did a lot of the debt pieces. No more bridge. For a long time there. No more Lifeco, because we were on that particular deal. We were quoting Lifeco and bridge. Those are gone. So now we're going to agency. So being able to shift, that gives us a lot more flexibility that the institutional people don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to your messaging and just overall communication, everything, I think that's probably one of the best things that you guys have done. And I give credit to Dan Hanford for a lot of this, just in knowing you guys, but your marketing and your messaging is top notch. Right. And I look at Dan in the marketing and what he used to do with his medical businesses, right? Driving business to that. How have you guys utilized that in the multifamily side? Aside from just like when I go click on your website, then I see it everywhere for the next 6 months.
Right? Yeah. We love that when we go on a tour. We're like, oh my word, I see you guys deals every time I get on Facebook or Instagram.
All right.
Dan is very good at that. And that's why that's his lane. I'm not good at that. But we like to provide value to people for no cost. Like we're not, you have the gurus out there, buy my program and all this other stuff. So we want to provide value to people that want to get into the space, and we do it, we don't turn a profit on that. We do have to charge something because we do have a cost associated with that, like our virtual summit that we do twice a year, and our weekly webinars that we have. Those are free. And we get on there, we're getting on there as our managing partners and talking and telling people how we do it. And we don't hold back. We don't, a lot of these gurus, they'll give you the very light level, like, okay, buy it at 8 cap. And, it's garbage. And if you want the rest of the information, it's $20,000 and I'll tell you my program, we don't do that at all.
Right.
And part of that is, we want other people to be successful. We don't have a poverty mindset and to think that, we're being protective of our business. There's enough out there for everybody. Yep. And we're confident enough in our ability that you're probably not going to be our competition because we're going to be better than you. I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but that is the way we think about it. But at the same time, I want you to be successful as well. So I hope one day, I said this on my last webinar this week, I hope one day that I see you guys up against us on a deal, on a $100 million deal. I really do. I think that's helpful because people, investors have to know, like, and trust you. And part of that liking you and trusting you is just providing them with value with nothing in return. And so that's a big part of it. And also, quite frankly, a lot of the people that get into this, they don't realize what's involved. And so a lot of people, they have the net worth and they have the money and so they're like, hey, I want to get into this space. And then, we provide them all this knowledge and they're like, holy cow, this is way more work than I thought. How about I just give you my money and you do it for me?
All right.
That's a part of it. So we pick up a lot of investors that way.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
Multifamily Method is powered by Capstone Companies, the largest privately owned multifamily investment sales brokerage nationwide. Capstone Companies provides dedicated coverage to both primary and secondary markets throughout the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Midwest regions of the United States. Whether buying, selling, or refinancing, Capstone Companies is here to help. Simply put, Capstone is expertise, experience, extra mile. If you're interested in having Capstone provide a complimentary opinion of value on your multifamily asset, please visit us at capstone-companies.com.
Brandon, touch on what does a current day look like for you?
Yeah, current day, we have a call with all of our teams each week. We have our asset manager that has a call with the property managers, the regional managers every week, which we're not part of. That's why, we have him there. But then we're checking in with him on a weekly basis and sometimes on a daily basis. And then also with my acquisitions team, I have a weekly call with them, talking about, what's in the pipeline, what looks good, what doesn't look good, any adjustments to our criteria that we've made, like say, okay, for the next little bit, I want you to only focus on, deals that have an equity number of 15 million or less, just because we purchased a couple expensive deals. Or, okay, go ahead and, look for stuff that's over 100 million. I'm constantly giving that feedback. And then how does our process look? That's something that we always are talking about every week. All right, what's our process look like on our pipeline? Is that working for you? Are we checking all the boxes? Do we need to change anything? Everybody feel good with their delegated tasks? Anything that we need to change? Constantly looking at that and making sure we're the most efficient in that area, so we can pump out deals faster and faster. So that's Monday. I have those calls. Tuesday, I have calls with our self-storage team. So we were in self-storage. Now we have a fund for that. And we have a separate acquisitions, team for that. And so we have a call with them. So I'm coaching them every other week. And then we have like a manager call on the in-between weeks, and just looking again at process. Where's the pipeline? How are we going? When are you planning a trip out to these markets? You need to be more aggressive, just coaching and telling them, kind of how they can increase pipeline. And then we have a call also on Tuesdays with our hard money lending team, which we have, originators and, the whole team there. So we're talking to them, looking at numbers, float costs, different things like that, just reviewing at a high level. And then the rest of the time is spent, just staying out there, talking to brokers. If I see a deal come across, I have an acquisitions team, but most of the brokers know me a little bit better. And so if it's a deal I'm very interested in, I'll reach out and kind of circumvent them a little bit and try to have a conversation and try to break something loose. Just because, our team is new and, they don't have the relationship yet with the broker. So I try to do that as well. And, also.
Yeah, I think I got a text message at 8:05 this morning.
And they're all, active in sports and music and all the rest. So, I'm trying to be very involved there. I'm at home now. I have a separate office on another building on our property. And so I'm in and out of the house, doing things like that over the summer. They go back to school on Monday. So I'm kind of stoked about that. But very active too. One of the things that, our company is passiveinvesting.com. So, we want to have a quality lifestyle.
Right.
You have to balance that work family load. So I have a good work ethic, but you have to have balance. So I definitely try to balance it out with family and make sure, because you only have, those kids are gone and you only have that time once. So take advantage, seize the day, YOLO, whatever you want to say.
No, that's awesome.
I mean, that's the best part about real estate is, I think, is it just allows you to have that quality of life, and you're not chained to a desk or chained to a computer or in most cases have a boss controlling your schedule. I mean, we have the opportunity, if we work hard and achieve some success, to control our own schedule.
Oh yeah. And that's having that freedom to make your own decisions is just something that I was born with that. I've never really worked for a company per se. UPS was the most W-2 job I've ever had. And that was just, in the morning. So it was part-time, but it would frustrate me to no end. I'm looking at the process and they were having injuries on a certain line. And I was like, if you go up to the top and you put a slide down, they could sort the packages and not have to lift them up over the heads, therefore reducing, the injury rate. And we got to run it through the engineer and we got to run it through that. And, I just don't want to do that. And, so me, I'm like, I'm going to get it done because I think that's the best way to do it. So I waited till the supervisor was away on vacation, called the engineer walking through the plant, said, what do you think about doing this like that? And then, he started working on it. And then the boss came back and was all ticked off that I circumvented him. And I was like, I thought we were trying to make this company better, not worry about who's in charge, So that corporate bullcrap, I cannot handle. I could never work in an office. They would fire me. I can't handle it. I got to have creative license and, just do my own thing. So, I agree 100% with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
What are some of the most significant successes that you've had to date?
I've been blessed with the success of the company. I mean, we continue to set the bar higher and higher. This year, our biggest acquisition to date, right at 92 million. That was a huge success for us. Breaking into a new market, it was, Jad, you helped us with that, getting us into Orlando, and that helped us get our foot in the door to getting that next deal, that our largest deal ever. So, getting into new markets has been a big challenge, but we see that as a success. So when I can get an asset in a market I've been targeting for years, like Charleston, I've been targeting Charleston since we started, and it's just been elusive. And we finally got a deal under contract there. We're going to close in a few weeks. Those are successes. And then, just seeing that continued growth. I love seeing our team grow with us. We have our team members are investing in our deals. Some of our employees are investing in our deals. We'd love to see that. We have competitors who have beat us out on deals. Specifically one in the Powdersville region, Alex, better on that are investing in our deals. We love to see that. I love to see a competitor, and we keep running into the same group, over and over again. And so, hey, again, let's not have a closed conversation. Let's say, hey, what are you doing? How can we make each other better? What are some things you're doing? Let's have a conversation. Let's both be more successful than we are now. And I love, brokers are investing in our deals.
Yeah.
That's a success to me when we can provide good returns for everybody.
So what are you guys working on now that you're most passionate about? And it could be something outside of work too.
Outside of work, the biggest thing is going to be my children. I used to be very active in sports and whatnot, but as the kids grew older, I've had to put that to the back burner. I really want to get into the development space. Alex, I think you asked the question early on about why I got into construction. I love seeing the results of me working with my hands or seeing things come up out of the ground.
Right.
I still do renovations on my house. I love seeing the finished product. I can visualize the finished product from the get-go, which a lot of people don't have that ability. And so that's where I want to go. I want to have start another branch that does development, ground up development. And I'm passionate about that. We all have to be on board. So I'm still trying to market that or work on my messaging to Danny and Dan. They're coming along. But I always sell them on a per door basis, my in place or my, development cost is, on average 190 a door.
Right.
And stuff is selling for 300 a door.
Right.
Why am I? And those people made money on the developments, selling it. So, and it provides us with a pipeline of brand new assets too. So in other words, you have a development arm.
Yep.
We have an operator arm and then also a management arm. We eventually want to acquire a property management company and have that in-house. And again, it's all looking at if there's revenue being made in the process, why are we not tapping into that revenue?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If we can own the company, not that I want to be managing properties, but if I can own the company and get profits off of that company, that's great. And I get more control. If I can have a development company that is feeding me pipeline to my syndication arm, then that's great because I don't have to worry about getting bid up and I have a great basis buy every single time.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Well, you were vertically integrated back in your single family housing construction that I picked up on that early on in the conversation. So you're just looking to spin it forward and with passive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Vertical integration to a level. I don't want to be doing everything myself, but a lot of the model that we do, like for our self-storage. So instead of us doing a lot of research and understanding self-storage space, we go to our network of people through the podcast and the meetups, and we find people that are in the space that we like and that are trying to get going in that space. And they have a lot of knowledge, but we can provide them with the equity and we say, okay, why don't we just bring you in and you be a partner in that arm of the business? You run with that. We'll oversee it, underneath the passiveinvesting.com, banner, if you will. But then we don't have to spend a lot of time learning a whole new industry. And yet we get to reap the benefits of it. Same with the hard money lending. We had, contacts through the meetups and in our networks that were in that space and had background in lending, which we don't. So I could spend time, learning how to lend and doing that, or I could just bring somebody in as a partner on that particular arm and they make money, we make money. And that's probably what we'll end up doing with both the management side and with the development side. Just find somebody that's doing it. They know what they're doing, and just bring them on as part of our team.
Yeah. That kind of leads into one of our next questions. Like, where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? What's the timeline on development? What's the timeline on the management?
As soon as we make a decision to do something, it's what we're doing.
Yep.
We don't really say we'd like to. It's like we have the conversation, and it's a yes or a no. No, we don't want to do it, or yes, we're doing it. And if we do it, it's coming out of the ground ASAP.
Right.
It's just the way we do it. As far as growth, future growth, a lot of people ask us where we see ourselves. Think Blackstone, CBRE Global. I have no problems with setting those goals because you read what's the What It Takes. The book from the Blackstone CEO there. What is his name? It's slipping my mind, but why can't I do that? He did it. Why can't I do it? There's no reason why not to. So that's kind of the future growth timeline. The sooner the better. We're very aggressive, and you guys have seen that. When we do something, we just come out of the ground with it.
Yeah.
The more time you take getting it out of the ground, the less money you're going to make.
Yeah, it's a decision is made, and then all right, let's offer on this deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're chasing pre-sale. All right, here's a deal. All right, let's offer on it now.
Yeah. Pre-sale, forward sales is something that we've been looking at too. So we need to get some forward sales going. That's kind of ties into the development piece, kind of just not even pre-stabilized, but waiting on COs and getting some forward sales. That's another area we're looking into to try to get pipeline.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's a good place to look. Let's move on to some rapid fire questions. What is the best book you've ever read or listened to that's impacted you?
That's a tough one. That I would say there are 4. 2 of them go together. Everybody says Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but that's kind of, if you're in this space, you already understand that concept. So that's entry level. That's just to even get you to understand money in the first place. So
right.
I kind of leave that book out. So that's not one of the 4. Extreme Ownership and Dichotomies of Leadership by Leif Babin and the Echelon Front guys. That's huge in understanding how leadership works. Because I think everybody has this idea of military leadership, and it's very, rigid and, unwavering and do what I say. It's not that way at all. And the kind of decentralized command, and if you're the leader, you can't have your head down firing on the enemy. You have to have your gun port and looking at where the enemy is so that you can direct your team members to overcome the enemy. So I think that book was very good. Dichotomies of Leadership is like a follow-up to that book and kind of counteracts, the opposite side of that, where you have to have balance in those different areas.
Right.
Definitely recommend that. Who Not How is another really good one. And it talks about, one of the things that he talks about is procrastination is a good thing because it tells you the things that you shouldn't be doing. You should find somebody else to do it for you.
Right.
So if you're constantly putting something off, writing articles for our newsletter, we do that every month. And, oh man, I'm always putting it off. So, so find a writer, and have them do that. So how much are you paying the writer to do it? Not very much, based on what you make per hour. And we always are calculating the hourly expense, basic things like mowing your grass or, having someone and cook dinner, like having a chef in your house. People are like, oh, that's excessive. Not really, because it takes it out of my mind space, and I don't have to be thinking about going to the grocery store and what I'm going to cook and then cleaning up and all the rest of it. So Who Not How is a very good book. One that I just finished, and I recommend this to everybody. It's probably going to be an annual read for me, is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Okay. And it just talks about, having that mindset. It has some analogies in there about the difference between Apple and Microsoft, and the difference, in the Walmart mindset when they started versus when some of the CEOs took over and they got so focused on, shareholder interest and not on what their mission was. Right. And having that infinite mindset, that one is really good. I highly recommend. So those are the 4 books I recommend.
Awesome.
Cool. So what is one piece of advice that somebody gave you that helped you get to where you are today?
hard work, my dad always said, just always go above and beyond, always look for what needs to be done, always anticipate, be looking at the process, and don't always have to be told what the next step is. I think that's something that's missing in the workforce today. I'll have people come work with me or some of the kids from school, and, we're doing a task and it's repetitive, and yet they still have to ask, okay, now what do you want me to do? I was like, okay, well, we've done this 5 times. You know that I'm going to grab this piece, I'm going to put it up here. So you should already have that piece in your hand and be handing it to me. So, looking at the process and using your brain. And I tell my daughters this all the time, and this is something my dad instilled in me, is, don't always just do what you are told to do. Do what needs to be done. And that's how you're going to be successful. Because if you're just like, well, it's not my job, that's a horse crap answer. I hate that answer. I actually had a kid that was doing work for me, and he hasn't done work for me since. And said, because it got back to me, they were doing a job, and he was telling one of the kids, hey, if we do it this way, it'll take longer and we can make more money because we're getting paid on the hour. And so, that got back to me, and I had the conversation with him. I was like, well, now you're not going to make more money because I'm not going to hire you anymore. So how does that work out for you? That mindset of just don't get nickel and dime into things.
Right.
Even back in our insurance world, people get so caught up in the nickel and dime. Just do the best job you can do possible, and the money will follow you.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing.
It's in line with, obviously on a podcast, you guys are active in the space too. What are some of the top podcasts that you'd recommend listening to?
It's hard to get real granular on it. Any podcast that you're listening to that can provide you value, like this podcast, for instance, you're talking to actual operators, actual owners, actual brokers in the space. That's really the best ones that you can pick, because there's so many out there. They have podcasts and they're the guru type. They're trying to sell you something and they're giving you very minimal information so that you'll buy their program. And nobody's got time for that. Talk about people that are actually achieving things and are actually successful in the space. Like the Capstone podcast, that's really where you're going to gain the most value. You're going to hear from people that are doing it, what mistakes they've made, and how they've had success. And you can take that and it's an actionable item right away.
Right.
All right. If there's one thing you could go back and change in your career, what would it be?
Nothing.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. I don't believe in redos. I think that, I had this conversation with Dan about the way kind of I was brought up in my education and different things like that. And we talk about how it could have been better, but it made me who I am. Right. So, So if I change that, would I be as good as I am now?
Yeah.
Everything that I've come across, adversity as well as successes, have brought me or led me to the point where I'm at right now. And so if I change that, or I try to avoid that adversity, like bankruptcy or being broke, or I may not be where I am today. So I wouldn't want to change anything.
Right. Would you have the same wife? Would you have the same kids? All that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who knows,
Yeah.
So no, I'm very, very happy. You can't be as scared of adversity or trials, because you definitely learn more from those than you do from successes, because when you have success, you don't analyze what went wrong. When you have something go wrong, you analyze what went wrong and decide how not to do that again. And so take everything together. It is life. You can't back up. So there's no point in talking about it. So just, take what has happened to you and use it as a tool to be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, what is one thing that you've yet to accomplish that you want to pursue in the future?
I've been to Papua New Guinea 3 times, to help, for missions and stuff like that. We helped build a school and put in a runway and, help build a couple of houses. And, I love that country. If ever I was going to move, it's third world, everybody lives in grass huts and, doesn't really have anything, but they have a coffee industry there. And way up in the mountains, they can't even get into town because they have these big, huge bags of coffee, and they sit there in their hut for months on end. And they walk it into town, with this big, huge thing of coffee on their shoulder to sell it. And back where they live in the bush, money's not worth anything because there is no trade, right? It's all trade. It's not monetary.
All right.
So what they do is they sell it, they spend all the money in town, and then walk all the way back home. I'm like, what in the world? So, and it's a huge industry. We all know coffee is huge. So my desire, my dream thing to set up is to go into these small villages, trade them for their coffee with stuff that they actually need, not for money. So we'd use like a voucher system so they can use it for like, they have doctors and stuff, some of the missionaries do, so they can trade it for that, or they can use it for education for their children, or like shoes, batteries, cell phone batteries, jackets, raincoats, umbrellas, whatever, not money. So you're almost creating, and then I can achieve the fair market trade regulations by doing that and get the coffee at less because I can buy in bulk, ship everything from Australia, ship it back to the US green because then you don't pay as much import tax, roast it here, and then try to use the roasting facility for like people that have a hard time getting jobs, whether it's people getting out of prison or different things like that, they can work in this roasting facility. So that's kind of like, I know that's a very specific
that's interesting though.
thing, but that's something I've always wanted to do. And one day I hope to do that.
Just like with the theme of the rest of everything you've done, it's ambitious.
Yeah.
Oh, go big or go home. Right?
Yeah, I like it, man. It's cool.
That's awesome. Well, it's been awesome to have you. Thanks for taking some time. It's been awesome to watch you guys grow. I mean, from one, not even $9 million deal to buying $90+ million deals, monthly. So love to continue seeing you guys grow at this kind of pace and helping that growth any way that we can. So thanks for spending some time with us.
We definitely appreciate it. Both of you have been integral in our growth. Alex was bringing us our very first multifamily deal ever. And then Jad, you got us our first one in Orlando, and we continue to do deals and sell and buy. So we appreciate the relationship that we've built with Capstone and look forward to doing a whole bunch more.
Thank you for listening to Multifamily Method. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps our podcast get discovered by other savvy investors like yourself. Subscribe to Multifamily Method for free on your podcast platform of choice. Find out more about Capstone Companies at capstone-companies.com. Multifamily Method is executive produced by Capstone Companies. Audio production for the podcast provided by Andy Go of Gojo Studios, and video production by Yash Mystery of Mystery Projects.